Hello, I'm Porschia Parker Griffin, and I want to welcome you to the Career 101 podcast, a place for ambitious professionals and seasoned executives who want an edge in their career. We're talking about all of the things you were never taught or told when it comes to career growth, development, and change. Now, let's get into it. Today, we are talking about resume building tips with Wynter Love. Wynter Love is our career services manager and lead interview coach. She is a current member of the Professional Association of Resume Writers and Career Coaches and a previous member of the National Resume Writers Association. In addition, Wynter holds certificates in human resources management, motivational interviewing, mediation, and teaching with technology and distance learning. She has 15 years of experience in employment consulting and transition coaching. Wynter attained a Bachelor of Family and Consumer Science from the University of Georgia and a Master of Education with a concentration in adult education and training from Colorado State University. Hi, Wynter. How are you today?
Hello. Thank you for having me again. I'm excited to be back.
Yes, we are always excited to have you with us, Wynter. And today we are discussing resume building tips. We have had you on this show quite a few times before. So, for anyone who wants to know more about Wynter's background and her career, please check out episode 2, which is Resumes 101, the basics, and what your resume should look like.
Mhm.
But today, we're going to jump right in and talk about resume building tips. So, Wynter, I
Yes.
think it would be helpful for people to understand the resume framework first. So, in
Mhm.
your opinion, what are the key sections of a resume?
Yeah, I definitely think that the key sections of a resume has changed over the years, right? We need to be aware of a couple of things when we're taking a look at the documents. We can take a look at what's trending, but then what's also the information that is necessary for your location, because international resumes have different formats too. But the standard American resume format should have some type of professional summary, an area for key skills, even technical skills, depending on your industry and your professional experience. So we want to try to limit that to between 10 and 20 years. We can go with the fluff there. And then, of course, the education and training section. Depending on your experience, depending on the longevity of your career, actually, you would temper all of those things. But you can also have sections like awards, additional leadership. I can go on and on. But those are the good chunks of a resume.
Yes, agreed. And I love your point about how the sections of resumes have changed. I was actually doing a review of a resume for one of our university partners today, and the person had a very outdated sections. For example, he used a section that I think a lot of people used to use, which is like additional experience. But in his case, the additional experience was in alignment with what he was currently doing. So it wasn't like just a placeholder
Mm.
for some random experience. And so it did come across as a bit dated. So thank you for pointing that out. So you told us about the summary, the key skills section, experience, and then education and training. Which sections do you think are the most important for executives and professionals?
I think that's a hard question, but let me explain. The sections do different things for different audiences, right? So I think personally for me, I generate or gravitate towards the professional summary. The human wants to read more about you, wants to know about that story, wants to get to know you through more soft skills versus the ATS or the applicant tracking system, the computer is looking more for those keywords or those key phrases. So the difference is depends on who you're targeting here. I think it's important to note that as well. Some industries like nonprofits, they don't typically use as much applicant tracking system. So it's more people oriented. So that format could resonate with more of the human eye and talk more about the content in regards to, I guess you say, the structure, different scenarios versus someone who is in finance, who's applying to corporations. We want to make sure that those keywords are infiltrated in the resume in multiple ways than just the good chunk or keyword section.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about this on a previous podcast episode about resumes, but you are so right. And when it comes to multiple audiences, right? So we've got the human audience, and in that human audience, I generally tell people that usually you've got the first level kind of recruiter or reviewer who might be, if it's a large organization, a more junior level person. So that's one of the human reviewers. And then at some point, you'll have a human reviewer that is the actual hiring manager, who usually is a completely different person. And then to your point, you've got the software technology, the applicant tracking system or ATS, which is really looking for those keywords. So, yes, human reviewers could think something is more important than the software and
Mhm.
all of that. So, Wynter, what are some tips for building those important sections of a resume?
When you build your sections of the resume, I think it's really important for you to reflect on your experience to have a good idea of what your experience looks like objectively. So, a lot of times when we talk about the different scenarios that we've been through, or even sometimes I have some clients preparing for the behavioral interview questions, and those questions have those keywords that are usually in the job postings. If you have no way to relate your experience to those keywords, you may struggle a little bit. So it's important for you to identify what are examples that fit inside of those keywords that the job postings have for you. And that can, I know that's, oh my gosh. Depending on your experience, you're like, how long that list of keywords is. But yes, that is all a part of the process. And honestly, why conversations is so important throughout the trajectory of your career and keeping track of all the things. That is definitely key when you're building your resume from that component. And then taking a look at what some other resumes look like just in general in your industry. Comparison is the thief of joy, as they say, but it can provide a foundation. You take a closer look at, maybe you have a mentor who is on the same career track and they have a resume that's already completed. Take a look at what they've done and get some insight from them.
Yes. And then something that I think you were alluding to that I really want to highlight for the listeners is that also the sections that you build out for your resume can also change depending on your industry, right?
Mhm.
We have a lot of clients that are in IT, for example, and they might have different sections than other clients who aren't in
Mhm.
IT. And then we have Wynter knows this. She is definitely one of the leads on a lot of our academic CVs. We know that they have a lot of different sections too. Great points there, Wynter.
Mhm.
As a professional resume writer, how do you create compelling content to include on clients' resumes?
Me, personally, I'm
Yes.
nosy.
You.
I'm so nosy. I'm always reading about someone's promotion, someone's something. I like to take a look at, which usually goes in hand with my writing process. I like to take a look at what's going on in the industry, if any companies, your current company or companies that you're interested have news that's going on that you would want to highlight. So I almost act as if I'm going through the interview process as the person or for the role so that I can just understand what they're looking for and put myself in that position. I think that helps me curate multiple versions of professional summaries for a client. So a lot of times some clients come to us for that resume summary, that LinkedIn summary, that professional bio, and you don't want to be repetitive. So it's important that you are able to weave your way through those granny squares to make a comforting quilt, if you will.
Yes, love the analogy. And putting together a resume is like quilting, to your point, Winter, because it's drawing upon those different experiences from the past and weaving them together in a nice kind of cohesive fashion. So, from your perspective, what are some of the biggest challenges you've seen professionals or executives have with writing their own resumes?
Oh, the whole process of identifying your experiences with the keywords, we joke about it and we gloss over it, but that's a lengthy process. That can be difficult to really pinpoint what's going on. And what I've also been seeing when you go through your performance evaluations, sometimes there's a little bit of anxiety there. Maybe you had a bad experience and you don't want to go through what happened in 2021 so that you can pull some accomplishments. Sometimes that is daunting in itself and could be a reason why you're lagging in certain parts of creating your resume. So, creating content is usually the hardest part for our executives and connecting it to the market today. I think it's important to note that sometimes when people say they're transferring and they're trying to transition out of industries or into new roles, you can't necessarily just use the experience, the resume, or present the experience how you have been previously. You want to reposition your experience and be open to new ways of discussing how your transferable skills can be highlighted.
Whoa, you said a lot there, Winter. I want to piggyback on one of the areas that you touched on because I hear this a lot when I am talking to our clients before they get to you. I hear a lot of, I've just done so much. I don't know what should be on my resume. And I think that's to your point about when you were talking about different experiences. And I generally have our kind of formulaic way of getting to what I call the gold in someone's background and getting that on their resume. But sometimes I just tell people, we'll do that for you. And to your point about performance reviews, I ask them if they have any performance reviews from the past. And I tell them to just send it over. And I know you've gone through some of those for
Mhm.
us, but we can dig through what might be minutia to you and find out what are some of those experiences to highlight as well. So you don't have to feel like you're doing that all on your own. So
Or
Winter,
even asking the different types of questions. Sometimes you don't consider yourself as someone who does negotiations, but you talk about different terms, and processes with clients. Those are not negotiations in terms of numerical value, but it is negotiating terms and impacting the contract and the workflow and the efficiency of the business. It's really also reframing questions so that they fit the experience and the goals moving forward.
absolutely, absolutely. So how long do you think the resume building process takes?
For
The Career 101 podcast is brought to you by Fly High Coaching, where we help our clients soar to their full potential. More and more professionals and executives are setting out to achieve their career goals. But without the right support, it can be difficult, if not impossible. Whether you need career coaching, interview coaching, or a program with a professional resume and a LinkedIn makeover, we're here to help. Could your career use some 911? It's not uncommon for executives and professionals to feel a little overwhelmed, stuck, or confused when it comes to their career or income. There are other people who want to know how to ramp up their success, consistently achieve their goals, and make a bigger impact. After hundreds of clients came to me with the same issues, I started recording the patterns for the Career 911 Masterclass, solving the top 5 challenges executives and professionals have. In the free masterclass, I share the exact strategies our clients use to tackle the top 5 problems. Check out the link in our show notes.
forever. It's ongoing. It never is. So it is one of those, I consider a resume a live document. I personally think that you should have like your own personal version of a CV where you are maybe 10, 15 pages in of your job roles, your accomplishments, your tasks, the dates that it changed, any special projects, certifications, trainings, publications in some ways. A lot of times people help with publications for newsletters and different things published online that they don't really consider. That can go on your resume and definitely can be in your job search toolkits. I would say resume building is ongoing the entirety of your career. And even afterwards, if you've retired and you're interested in board work, you need a resume for that too. It always definitely is impactful to have it. Now, how long does it take to write a resume? Going through everything, I don't, it depends. Me, my personal process, it takes about 4 to 5 days, especially if I want to know more about what's going on, that you're an executive in the company, or if you're looking for more tailored type of roles. It takes time to really understand what the needs are so that you can specify the language to fit a myriad of scenarios. Myriad. How do you say
Yes.
that word?
Yes, you said it. You said it. And I agree. I agree. And I think to Winter's point, it takes days. And if somebody, I guess if you were to calculate it all, it's quite a few hours of time if you were to consolidate that. But it takes a good bit of time to build a resume.
Mhm.
So, how do you
Yeah.
think keywords that are specific to the job and the industry someone is targeting can be used in resume building?
The keywords are so important, and it's even more important to understand how different keywords can be to your detriment. Let me explain that because that sounds so bad in the grand scheme of things. But so say for instance, you refer to your easy low hanging one is referring to your clients as clients rather than referring to them as suppliers. So maybe if you're switching industries, the industry standard is to call their customers, their clients, suppliers. Is that to say that you don't have supplier relations if you've just been having client relations? Not necessarily. It's just a different type of relationship building that you want to make sure that is transferred over when you are building your resume. But it's also important to know that certain certifications and training can be translated and can be highlighted during your resume building as well. Some companies, especially like in supply chain, they really value certifications. So you can move that up on your resume. The formatting isn't stagnant. All these things can move and ebb and flow depending on what you're looking for and the goals of the company, especially if they have like the preferred qualifications down at the bottom. That is like gold information. It tells you exactly what you're looking for. Put that up at the top. So it's the first thing that they see.
Mhm. And I think, Winter, you're making a larger point too. And I want to make this more general and broad for other people. Winter's talking about how important those industry and job specific skills are. And this is to another point, and Winter will probably need to have a whole episode on this too. But the days of a just general resume are long gone. And we still hear clients say that. You just give me a general resume that I can use for any job. And not as many people say that as they did 5 years ago, because I think more people are understanding keywords and there's technology and AI. But there are some people
Mhm.
who still believe that just having one resume that's general that they can use to apply for everything is going to be helpful. And I have to tell those people that it is not. That's not effective today. Really hasn't been effective for
Some time and
10 years, but definitely today. And it's different than it was 15 years ago, 20 years ago when that was common. It's very important to be specific as you are building a resume.
yes.
So, in episode 61, we talked about important skills for a resume. How can transferable skills be incorporated into the resume building process?
Oh, yes, good old transferable skills. What I've been seeing recently is like a section transferable skills. As I'm looking through what the resume world is doing, people are just bumping out transferable skills so that they're easy to find. And I guess I can get with that as a way, a method, depending on the format of your resume and your intention going forward. But those transferable skills, first you need to identify them. It's important to know how you are going to market yourself in the new industry. It's important to know. And when you say new industry, it's also important to illustrate that it doesn't have to mean that you're switching industry completely. So maybe I shouldn't say industry or roles rather, because sometimes when you're taking a step down, I have seen a couple of managers who just, well, I just want to work remotely. So can I find an analyst role, a role I was supervising these people, an engineering role? And you really need to make sure that you are translating your experience in ways that they understand that you can do the work outside of managing the work. So it's important to have that distinction and understand what they're looking for so you can mirror that same language. Those transferable skills are important to notate the origin of. So, what is it that you have the skill in? You have technical documentation on your resume. What else can that be referred to as? Take a look at that and go from there. Create a little web. Sometimes it's helpful to see it visually.
Yeah, love it. So, what would you say to someone who maybe they've been listening to this episode or they've just been trying to build their resume themselves? What would you say to someone who's overwhelmed by the resume building process?
You are not alone. I am here with you. Oh, really, truly, it can be frustrating. It is so hard to see yourself objectively. I know I sound like a broken record, but it really is hard to sit back and see what you want to highlight or pinpoint, or you feel like you're reducing yourself to 2 pages seems like such a daunting task. Or honestly, in some regards, trying to fill up 1 page seems like a daunting task. Or our newer employees, our newer clients who are entering the workforce who may just have a lot of internship experience and they don't know how to make sure that it's translating well to some of our private sector jobs that are requiring 5 years of experience or else. And fellas, girl, you listening?
Yeah, that's definitely the simple thing. We can definitely help you out with any overwhelm in the resume building process. And to your
Mhm.
point, Winter, I think most of the clients we have where I hear that is our clients, I should say it's a couple of groups of clients, but really the ones that have they're either mid-career or
Mhm.
late career and they have a lot of experience and they don't know what to include and what to cut out. And then also our career changers
Mhm.
because they're in that same scenario in terms of they don't know what to include, what to take out, what to
Mhm.
highlight. And I think that those groups of people tend to have the most overwhelm when it
Yeah.
comes to resume building.
I agree. I agree. And it's tough. I acknowledge that it's tough. I tried to write my own. I know that is so ridiculous to say. I don't write my own resume. Even I asked someone else to write my resume because it's I look at them every day. I don't want to look at mine and think about it. But it can be hard to get through, to get over that hump, to get to the next step. And we can definitely help you and assist with that process. So don't suffer. I say if your base resume, especially if your base resume is 5 or 6 pages, just go ahead and call us.
Yes, and to your point, I have to tell people all the time not to beat themselves up about trying to write their own resume. I don't think I've shared this story on the podcast, but I've told you about it before Winter a long time ago now. But we had a client who spent a year not only working on his own resume, but applying for jobs. And he was a high achiever. He told me he got a 4.0 in his MBA program at this prestigious university. And he was beating himself up because he said, I can't write a freaking resume. And I had to tell him that it is nothing to do with his intelligence. When it comes to resume writing, there are so many things to consider that really, unless you're a nerdy resume writer,
Mhm.
career coach who's looking at resumes all the time, really knows, what Winter's talking about in terms of keywords and writing for software technology screenings and highlighting your accomplishments and building on the right sections. There's no way you would know this. So if
Exactly.
anyone out there is feeling that way, I definitely want to tell you to take the pressure off.
Yes, please. It's not as easy as it seems. And I'm just like, employment is all I know. I started in employment in HR. I've been looking at resumes for 20 years. So, it's second nature for us to sit and talk about these things and spit out. So don't feel ashamed for trying. Come on, we can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Winter, my last question for you. How do you think executives or professionals can get a positive edge with resume building?
Oh my goodness. You want your positive edge to come from a place of sincerity. You want to make sure that you are including your most relevant and recent accomplishments as you build, but also think about how you impacted people and the relationships that you cultivated along the way. Resume building does not have to be an isolated process. So if you do need help, feel free to reach out. We are more than happy to always have a conversation and make sure you're on the right track.
Winter, as always, you have shared a lot of great tips with us today. I'm sure that our listeners can use it to be more confident with their resumes. We appreciate you being with us.
Thank you so much. I hope I come back again soon.
This episode was brought to you by the Bravebird Career Alliance, the go-to membership designed for seasoned executives and ambitious professionals with everything you need for career planning, strategy, training, and support. Thank you again for listening to the Career 101 podcast. I hope you have at least one key takeaway that you can use in your own career. If you enjoyed hanging out with us, please rate, subscribe, and share this podcast. Until next time, here's to your success.